Oh, there it goes.
Hey everybody, welcome to You Can't Tell It, Let Me Tell It. Happy New Year, because we haven't seen anybody since I think our last show was back in November. And we just want to thank everybody again for all that you've done for supporting our ministry, City of Jericho, our sister ministry, and supporting this show. We thank you, we thank you, we thank you. So today, this evening, we have Minister Christina Minor joining us. And what we're going to do, we're going to let her, and as our usual and customary, is we let them talk about those things that their ministries, their businesses, all of the streams that God has blessed them with. We're going to let them talk about that first, and then we're going to get into the nitty-gritty. Okay. So we're going to let Christina introduce herself in her own way. If you see me looking down, it's just because I want to make sure, because the camera is too far for me to be able to see if anybody makes a comment. We're asking that you please invite people to watch this video. Please invite people, share it, because the more that we can get out there, we believe the greater that the viewing will be, and we'll be able to take it to a whole nother level. So invite, share. So Christina Minor, Minister Christina Minor.
So you want me to?
I want you to talk about who you are.
Okay, I'm a few things. Some of you may or may not know me, but first and foremost, I really love God, and I love everything about Him because He truly saved me from so much in life. I'm from a little town called Swansboro, North Carolina, and my husband is in the military. He's but he's retired. And he just retired last year from the Marine Corps after 20 years. So I'm definitely a wife, I'm a mom, and like I said, most of all, I'm a servant of God. And also, outside of that, I work a lot.
We all.
But I work with in the mental health industry. Basically, I work with a company called TAG Services, and it's a mental health skill building program and agency, and I've been working there since 2013. I do QA, and I'm director's assistant with that. I also have a business called Victorious Minds, and that's a contracting business, which I have contracted myself. I still do with other companies to do QA, quality assurance, and auditing files, mental health files. Outside of that, I have a ministry, Christina Minor Ministries, which is my heart. And with that particular ministry, we go anywhere, really. And it's not just about this particular ministry. It's also about linking up with other ministries. Like, for instance, City of Jericho. I haven't gone that often, but I did go with her out in the on the south side, on the streets, to speak with prostitutes, to pray with them, and even homeless. But primarily her target, of course, as you know, is sex trafficking. So that's what I have done with her. And other ministries, as far as Christina Minor Ministries, we have a scholarship every year. This year is for an adult. It's $1,000 for whomever goes to, who's going back to college or going to get a trade. Last year it was for a high school graduate. And there's certain criteria that comes with that, and more information will come in the upcoming months as far as the scholarship. And we're going to make sure we have a scholarship every year. Another thing that we're doing this year is a little bit different. It's Cleats for Kids.
Oh, awesome.
So Cleats for Kids is similar to, like, you know how you have the angel tree and the Christmas, you pick an angel off the tree and you pay for that family or whatever. So with Cleats for Kids, we're going to have... I'm basically linking up with different people that I know that work in the education field, and we're going to go ahead and see what children need cleats to play a sport, or if they need to pay their registration fee. So it's basically to try to keep children off the street. Eventually we want to open it up for the performing arts and be able to provide instruments or lessons for children who want to get involved, because a lot of times kids may have a ride, but they don't have the funds to pay for the equipment or pay for the lessons or what have you.
So what if it's the opposite way, that they can get the equipment through the school, but they can't get a ride?
That we haven't gotten there yet, but we will try to link up with some resources that I know in various communities to see if we can get the children a ride. But I don't want to put it out there that that's what we're going to do,
right? Because
we don't have the transportation. I'm one person, and I have other individuals helping, but we don't have that yet.
Right.
Outside of that, with the ministry, we're eventually going to definitely do something with veterans. and more of outreach, far as making sure that we have veterans. That my husband loves to hunt and he loves to fish, so that's going to be kind of like his territory, and that's in the developing phase right now for the ministry. Outside, we have a motto. It's called Change to Impact. So with the ministry, we say that we've been changed for Christ and to impact the world. And we also believe in the word hope, which is an acronym for us and is helping others progress effectively. Because we also want to make for sure that not only are we giving things, but that we're actually helping people progress, learn what their purpose is, try to help them, kind of organize their life and figure out what they're supposed to be doing for Christ and for the world. And so basically we just, preach the gospel, teach the gospel, and we want to meet people where they are and make for sure that as we meet people where they are, that they also, the power of our testimony, the Bible speaks of that. It's the blood of the Lamb and the power of our testimony that will win souls. Right. And I think we have to do it wisely. And so we definitely use our testimony because we've been changed to impact the world. So testimony and the word of God. Outside of that, I have another business called RTF Talent, and RTF stands for Remember the Face. And it's not a talent agency, it's a talent development business, and we reach aspiring actors. You have all these things in the mall, they tell you, I'm gonna make you a star, and then you end up signing all these contracts and stuff.
Or you end up with me in the human trafficking realm.
Yeah, exactly. And so we would just want to stop aspiring actors before they go ahead and take that leap into the industry the wrong way.
Right.
We want to try to stop them and be able to impart into their life. And it's not just about talent development. It's also very much so about self-awareness. It's about knowing who you are, because if you don't know who you are before you get in this industry, then the industry will make you who they want you to be.
Absolutely.
So you just need to know who you are and know what you're getting yourself into. And it's the right way versus spending a whole bunch of money on a whole bunch of stuff that you probably don't have to. So that's RTF Talent. And I think that's about it. Outside of being a friend, and I also attend Destination Church under Pastor Brian Briggs. And I love it. It's down in Hopewell. And that's basically about it. I mean,
okay, so
the current me.
The current you. How can people reach you if they want to become involved in one of those streams? And we are going to put it on there after, because I'm not going to be able to. One, I can't see, so I don't know where my glasses are in the car again. But we'll type everything, all of her contact information in, and she's shared on this link. So please feel free to contact her, go into her, send her an inbox message, and we will make sure that all of her information is listed, so that if you're looking for talent help, if you're looking for ministry counseling, if your child needs some cliques. If you just need some direction, mental health, whatever it is, and we know that mental health is running rampant in this world. It's not just this community, but it's this entire world. People are using the excuse of mental health to get past their criminal or whatever, actions that they're choosing to do. They're using, I didn't know.
Right.
Or,
right.
Or I wasn't taking my meds, or, you can get a gun because you're mentally ill. We want to make sure that people are getting the necessary tools that they need, and you have a gambit of tools right here. So we want to make sure that if you need something, please, please, please contact her.
Yes. If you want to reach me, it's very simple. If you pull up Christina, and it's Christina. If you pull up Christina Miner, Miner, on Facebook, you should see my lovely face. Or if you do Christina Miner Ministries, that should come up. And then also I have RTF Talent, that should come up on Facebook. On Instagram, it's Christina Miner. And then you can always find my websites in rtftalent.com. And then you have cmministries.org. ChristinaMinerMinistries.org, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So now comes that time.
Yes, the questions.
She thinks I'm gonna drill her for whatever reason. I don't think anybody that's been on this show can say that I have drilled them with inundated questions.
No.
But I am going, if she says something that leads to a question, I'm going to ask.
That's fine.
But anyway, one of our biggest things we have so many people that say, no. So many people say that that you're called. Mm-hmm. Every called person that I know of, or that I have read in the Bible, has gone through hell and back. Mm-hmm. You have gone through some issues that you don't know how you made it out or how you're going to get out of those things. And I think people forget that when you are a minister or when God has called you into his service, that those things that you've been through or are going through, that's what's going to propel you to walk into the purpose that God has called you, has positioned you for. So we wanted to talk to Christina because I know part of her story. I think I know almost all of it. Mm-hmm. And when I listen to people's story, I'm listening and I'm hearing it, but I'm always asking God, how can I use them for your glory? Mm-hmm. Because I always believe that every time that we get on here, somebody is on the other side that needs something. Our last show, we had Sister Lily, who's watching, who went through the gastric bypass. And when we posted that on YouTube, the number of comments that I got, because people don't want to talk about things. So, which is the same thing. As ministers, we don't want to talk about what we've been through because for whatever reason, we feel ashamed of it. Mm-hmm. Why? Yeah. So how did you tell us before the minister?
Okay. I have to say, and I always say this because some people, a lot of times in society, we have this misperception of people, especially if you're African American. Oh, that must have happened to you because, you were unfortunate as a child and you didn't have, your family wasn't educated. We have all these labels and things that we try to put on people, and I can't say that was my case. I did come from a very blessed family from North Carolina, and growing up, I had one side, people, it seemed like they were jealous. I didn't know why they were jealous. And I had the other side, I just, I'm trying to live life and being bullied in school and stuff. And I would say, they would probably say they were picking on me, but when you go home and you want to kill yourself because you don't want to go to school the next day, that's bullying. So through that situation, everything happened when I was younger. Someone married into the family. I was molested from the age of 5 through 11. And so when I was going to school, everybody seen I was very good with putting on masks. So everybody seen this one person, but they didn't understand that when I was going home, something else was happening. And that was like the very early, of course, ages. Now, when I got into junior high school, I didn't know enough. I didn't have enough self-confidence that I could be myself. So I tried to follow and do what everybody else was doing, or just trying to fit in. Mm-hmm. And, people would pick on me and stuff. And then some people start lying on me and saying that I was doing things that I hadn't done yet. But it was right around the corner because of the simple fact I had no self-esteem. Mm. None. It was shot. Like when someone molests you at such a young age, you lose your whole entire identity. Right. That your identity is now associated. Everything is distorted. Your perception about sex is distorted. Everything is totally distorted. So when I was going through that phase of my life, I didn't know who I was. I didn't, of course I was young, but I just didn't know. I was stripped of everything at a young age, and my whole perception of things was just off. So then later on, of course, at the age of 12, I'll say about 12 years old, I started like any type of pills I could find, drinking. I just started everything at an early age. I started the drinking early. I started if I could find, at that time I really couldn't find weed, but we would do other stuff, but I would try to find any type of pill, even if it was those pills you buy over the counter like Vibrant and stuff, like anything to just make me escape and leave my reality.
And this was at 12?
This was at 12 years old. And then at the age of 12, I'll never forget the night I lost my virginity, because everybody was like, yeah, I'm already having sex. Come to find out, they hadn't been having sex. They were lying. But because I wanted to fit in with everybody, I did. I lost my virginity at a very young age. And then from there, everything just snowballed. Later, I ended up dating one guy through high school. Very nice guy. I won't mention his name, but very, very nice guy.
Thank you.
But he was nice, but I was messed up. I learned after I looked back and reflected, I just did not know how to be in a relationship because of the simple fact I had the examples of my mom and my dad, and my mom was very strong, very strong woman, independent. You be an independent black woman. My dad was more like, okay, you don't have to necessarily go to college, but you need to do something, but make sure you do what you've been called, what you've been called to do. My mom was like education, education, education. So I had two different worlds, but as far as relationship, my mom, I love her to death, but she wasn't real touchy.
Right.
She wasn't real touchy. I'm not a very touchy person. But then when in high school, I began to, first everything was going pretty smooth. And then all of a sudden I just started getting into drugs. Now I'm doing marijuana. Now I'm popping speed. Now I'm drinking. Like half the time I remember, like some of my friends, they'll say, hey, don't you remember when such and such happened? No, I don't remember because I was so out of it.
Right.
But I tried to hide things very well. And then on top of it, I didn't cut deep enough, I guess, or either God just healed it, but I would definitely take razors and stuff and try to scrape my arm and try to cut. And then, I had a lot of suicidal thoughts. There was plenty of times where I felt like because of people picking and stuff, and like I said, some of the people I still talk to this day, they'll probably say, oh, I was just joking with you. But that stuff hurts.
Right, like you're already dealing with other issues.
So I was already dealing with other crap. And then on top of it, and that means me. When you get to the point where you want to do more drugs and you want to do more alcohol and you want to kill yourself, like that's crucial. And I was at that point. So, but to look at me, no one ever thought that I was going through anything because, I had to play the role. You have to dress a certain way. You have to talk a certain way. You have to be a certain way. And then in high school, I just started, I would say about 11th grade, maybe. Probably around 11th, maybe a little bit before. I just started becoming just very promiscuous. Like, it didn't matter. Like, I just slept with whoever, whatever that was walking. And that was because it started out looking for love in all the wrong places, basically. I wanted people to love me for me. Right. So I felt the biggest thing I could do is give you me.
Right.
And not knowing that was going to cause a downhill spiral as well. God graced me. I didn't catch nothing or nothing like that. But the thing about it was I had no self-worth.
Right.
So because I was out there doing whatever with whomever, then all of a sudden I was between high school and my early 20s, I got raped 4 times.
Wow.
And they were all people that I knew. One was like a brother to me. The other one was not, but it was someone that I knew through some other, through people that I had gone to school with. And then there was one that I knew that I had actually liked, but I never had sex with him. And then he had called me over one night because he supposedly wanted to talk to me. And I went over there thinking that a friend needed help.
Right.
And as I was sitting in there, he had him and all his friends in there. And I was like, what in the world? And it was dark, but I didn't think nothing of it because I was thinking, he didn't
trust him.
Yeah, just trust him. They left. And then he tried, and I fought him off. And as I was fighting him off, because he did get my pants down, and I started pulling my pants up. And as I was doing that, his friends walk in, and they just start laughing. Like, they just start surrounding and laughing.
While he's doing what he's doing.
While he was trying to. And so that wasn't an actual rape. That was more of an attempt. But then the other rapes were people that I knew. One guy got me drunk and took me over to a friend's house, over to his trailer. And I swear I think he put something in my drink that night. And he raped me and he dropped me off home. But I was sick to my stomach because I had been drinking a lot. And I remember him saying, keep your effing head out the window, you bitch. Don't throw up in my car. And then he just kind of like tossed me in my front yard. And then there was another gentleman, well, not gentleman, I ain't gonna say gentleman per se, but there was another guy, like I said, he was like a brother to me. And that one, I would say out of all of them, hurt the worst. And then it was someone else that I did not know that had raped me. So I've been through that. And so then when I get in college and stuff, like at this point, I have no self, nothing. Like anything that began with self at the beginning, like any type of hope, any type of anything, I had none, none whatsoever. And at this point now I'm angry. You know, it's like, okay, I went from, I want to give people my body because I want people to love me for me and I want to show them how much I love them. And then I went from that to like, okay, fine, you want to use me, you want to hurt me, fine, I'll do it to you. So then I just start sleeping with people and just not even paying them no attention afterwards. Like they would be trying to, you know, I want to talk to you, I want to have a relationship. I'm like, nah, I don't want nothing, I'm done. Like I would just hit it. I took on the other mentality. Yeah, like, you know, how we say guys hit it and miss.
Hit it and miss.
Yeah, so I took on that persona.
Right.
And from there, it was just, I was reckless. Like I was really, really reckless. And I just constantly just did a lot of things, self-indulgence that would hurt me. And I didn't care. Like I really did not care if I woke up the next morning. I had no care whatsoever. If I drank, I could drink with the best of them, but I didn't care if I woke up.
Right.
So in a way, it was suicide every time that I drank because it didn't matter to me. I felt like I had absolutely nothing to live for, and it didn't matter. And later, I ended up, you know, going to college and things of that nature. And I came back home because I was just wasting my parents' money, like straight wasting their money. So when I came back home, my father was like, you got to do something. So I said, well, I'm going to go into the military. And my father and I, did you want me to go this far? Or you want me to? Okay. Going. So my father and I got in a very bad argument. And hopefully I don't start crying. But we got in a very bad argument. And that day, I told him, I said, I wish you were dead. I looked him straight in his face and I said, I just wish you were dead. And because he had slapped me. I deserved it. Honest to God, I deserved it. My mouth was reckless. And he slapped me and I said, I wish you were dead. And I remember looking him in his face like just rageful. Because at that point, I never said, it was either I liked you or I hated you. Mm-hmm. It was never, now I know that I either like somebody or dislike their ways. Right. I don't hate, but then I didn't care. I was so cold-hearted. And a lot of people never seen that side of me because I put on such a good facade. I put on such a good facade at the time, like, but people, my family seen it.
Right.
But I told him I wish he was dead. I left. I went out of town with two of my friends. I came back. And I asked him, I said, Dad, can I talk to you? I said, let's do what we used to do. Let's do something fun like we used to do, which was go bowling. So he was like, all right, we can do that. Let me finish doing electricity at your sister's house. We can do that tomorrow night. I was like, all right. So I used to always kiss him on the forehead and say good night and I love you. And that night I didn't. And it was 2 days prior to, after saying I hated him. So the next morning I got up, and the beginning of the year God has shown me, I didn't know it was God at the time, I just thought I was psychic. Yeah, that's a whole nother story. During that time, God was like, I just felt like somebody was going to die or get really, really sick in my family, my mom or my dad. And I remember writing a poem and everything. And my father that morning, he left. He had to go to the doctor because his shoulder was hurting. And he said, okay, after I go there, get everything done, we'll come back. We'll go bowling tonight. All right. So I was going to tell him everything that had been happening to me, like the molestation, the rape, the suicidal thoughts, the cutting, the drinking, the drugs. I was going to tell him everything. Well, that night never came. He left home and he dropped dead, like literally. We didn't know he was sick or nothing. And he died. He never came back home. And I swear to you, like Satan used that over my head for the following 2 years after his death. Like I had like this little shrine in my house. My mom thought I was cracking up. I was going to the gravesite like every single weekend. It was bad. Like psychologically, I was like distraught because I really felt in my heart, because you got to remember, I didn't know Christ during this time. Right. So in my heart, I felt like I killed my dad. Right. Because the last thing I said to him was like, I wish you were dead. And then he dropped dead 2 days later. So I really felt lost, even worse. And I felt worse. So now I'm still wilding out, still doing the drugs, still sleeping around. And then all of a sudden, I get with this guy, and purposely I got pregnant by him, and it didn't matter to me because I wanted someone to love me.
Right.
And at that point, I felt such a void from my father.
Right.
So in a way, it was like, I didn't care if I got pregnant or not.
Right.
However, that relationship did not work. I ended up, we named our son, his name is Justice, and I named him Justice because I was like, it's just going to be us, because I just knew it from out the gate, like, this guy was not going to be around.
Right.
And, you know, I was 19 with this kid, and my mom begged me to go to school. She asked me to go back to school, and I said, no, I'm not, because I laid down to... We're back.
Okay. Temporary.
So basically, after I had my son, I stayed. My mom was like, you know, we'll help you and everything. And that was great, but I felt that so many times, and I didn't even notice, like, as a kid, but I just felt like it wasn't her responsibility.
Right.
You know, my dad had just died. Now I had, like, trying to plot my inheritance and stuff. It was crazy. And then I was like, I need to do something with myself.
Right.
And I remember being on food stamps for about a hot 3 months because they said I worked too much, so they took me off, but they did let me keep Medicaid. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm probably the only person in my family that's ever had assistance. So that was, you know, at first I felt kind of ashamed, and then I was like, nah, I got to do what I got to do.
Right. I mean, you got a kid.
Yeah, and I didn't want to be a complete burden on my family. I tried to work. I didn't want that to be my story.
Right.
And I wanted my son to see, yeah, mommy, she had me, but she steady worked and she steady tried to provide, which came to bite me later because he didn't understand at that point that I was trying to work to provide, but I didn't have balance and I didn't really spend a lot of time with him. But at any rate, I went back to school. I started, you know, I got my CNA 2. And I was doing well, and I got in a relationship. This relationship right here was something serious. Okay, so all my children, I have 2. They're interracial. So I honestly, it didn't matter if they black, white, polka dot back in the day. I just was in with anybody. But my children ended up being, and I'm married now to a white man. So
hey, Rich.
Oh, he ain't out there, probably not. So in between the time that I had my son and before I met my husband, I did have 2 abortions. One was by a guy that I was dating, and I felt bad about it, but I just knew that it wasn't going to work. And I'm not trying to justify what I did at all, but it was just, I felt like I had no other option. The second one was by this guy that I was dating. He was a white guy. And if you want, it was the classic slave, and I'm being for real, like it was like the classic slave master situation, for real. Like he did not want me, I started noticing because I was so in love with him that I didn't really care what was going on. So he was something different. He was not, you know, because back in the day, I dated a lot of, you know, not too many drug dealers, but quite a few. Like I had that other side of me that I hung out with a lot of drug dealers. I hung out, you know, with the ones who, you know, selling crack and helping them transport, driving them all over everywhere to drop, you know, to do drops and stuff. So I had that life that I had lived. I didn't live in the hood, but I went to the hood a lot. But then it was, well, the hood that we call it, we ain't really got no real hood compared to, like, Richmond was a culture shock.
Far from Swansboro.
Yeah, far from Swansboro. So it was the hood for Swansboro.
It was like, we don't have trees.
Yeah, it's like country hood back home. But anyhow, so with this guy, we dated for about 3 years. You know, he was very, you know, he was working at the hospital. He ended up having his own business. He's just doing good for himself. It was something very, very different. And I was like, okay, this could be, you know, this could be it. This is the guy. But I started noticing, like, oh, we only go out at night, only in a parameter area. Like, we didn't go into town too much together. So we, did you want to say something?
No.
Okay. So that's why I say it was like a slave situation, because truthfully, I found out later, like his mom, his dad, all them were like totally racist. totally racist. So one of his friends one time said to me, and this is the other guy that I had abortion by, and that one really killed me, because I was like, Lord, I didn't want to do this again, and I was so in love with him, and I had this whole facade, and that's when my eyes really started opening after that abortion. And when he was sitting there, he was crying. He put on a good show. He put a great show on. Like, he should be an actor for real. But anyhow, his friend, like, after the abortion, let me tell you how cold he is. After abortion, he made me go out to dinner with him and a friend for business. Wow. And he act like nothing had ever happened. Nothing. And I'm, of course, bleeding and hurting, and I'm sitting there like, is this really happening right now? So that showed me, like, he don't care about you at all.
Exactly.
So time passed on. His friend says to me, like, he don't really care about you. Like, you cook, you clean, you work.
You were the maid.
I was the maid. And then one of the girls that he cheated on me with, I found out one night. She called my house, because she had come by my house. And she called me up, and she said the only reason why he's with you is because he told his mother in front of everyone, talk now. Had the girl stand there beside his mama. She was a white girl. Had her there beside the mama, and he said, I got the other girl, me. I got a good one this time because she's rich. Oh yeah. So I was like, oh, okay. Because see, I helped him move his trailer to where we lived. So he went back and
when you said you helped him move,
I gave him money.
You gave him.
I gave him money to move. I helped him move.
Wow.
This was before he started his business. So when he started his business, he was good.
Right.
He was set up. He was sitting real pretty and fine. So anyhow, I ended up finding all this information out. I met his mom. His mom told me to my face, he will never marry you. He won't marry you. So I don't know why you still. And so she said, why? I was told you had an abortion. I said, I did. And she said, why'd you do that? I said, because of this very reason right here, obviously.
Right.
I said, not that I should have done it. And don't get me wrong, for every Christian out there, I'm not promoting abortions. But what I am saying, I felt like I had no other choice in the matter. That's how I felt at that time. Mm-hmm. And she told me to my face. She was like, because she was prejudiced. The daddy was prejudiced. The whole crew was prejudiced, except for his brother. I didn't know it. He said that the dad was, but the mom wasn't. It was like a lot of lying.
Right.
And for 3 years, after that relationship, I hit rock bottom bad. I ended up injuring my back at work. I was out of work. I was totally depressed. I hadn't thought about suicide in years. And it brought me back to a very dark place. And at this point, I'm early 20s now, and it brought me back to a very, very dark place. So much as so that now it's no longer the marijuana. It's no longer, it's marijuana and alcohol, but it's no longer just that. Now I had kind of graduated and started doing coke. Mm-hmm. So I started doing cocaine, and that's when I got raped the last time. I was out with this particular person, and I got raped. And because they were supplying me the coke.
Right. He
was like a brother to me. So he was supplying me coke, and then he raped me. So I had really hit rock bottom, and I'll never forget, this was a pivotal change in my life, because when I hit this particular rock bottom, that's when I'll never forget, I was in my trailer and I got on my knees and I said, God, if you are really who you say you are, because see, I knew God, I knew of him, because I was always told, pray over your food, pray before you go to bed. I didn't have a relationship, and I can't even honestly say I was really saved at that time.
Right.
I had confessed him as my Lord and Savior, but I didn't have a relationship.
We all did when we were growing up.
And I
didn't have that
Holy Spirit. I mean, I barely knew Jesus, so I definitely didn't have the Holy Spirit in me. I always thought I was psychic because of things that I could, it was prophetic, but I didn't know that. And honestly, the first prophecy that, and I'm backtracking, sorry, but the first prophecy that I ever got was one night I got mad at my baby daddy. I got mad at him, and I called a psychic hotline, and this lady was talking to me, and I was like, man, I think I'm psychic, da 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 da. And
you telling the psychic that you psychic?
Yeah, and she was like, I could get fired right now. She said, but I'm gonna tell you the truth. She said, you're not psychic, you're prophetic. And that was the first, God had allowed me to call a psychic hotline to find out that I was prophetic. Not that I really knew what that meant, but that was the first. and then she began to prophesy over me on that phone. And some of the things the psychic did. And then some of the things that she said has come to pass. And she wasn't claiming to be psychic in that. She said, you know, she just,
I guess she was worried about her job.
Yeah, she was worried about her job. And she just didn't want me out here thinking something that I wasn't.
Right.
Because she could see and sense and discern that I was a child of God. But when I had, going forward, when I got into this relationship, it was very, I was lost. Like, after that, I was lost. And I still worked. I still functioned. But I was literally lost over a relationship. And that was my rock bottom. And when I prayed out, I said, God, if you are really who you say you are, because I really don't know who you are, you have got to take the taste of all of this out of my mouth. Like, every time that I even want to drink, make me sick to my stomach. And Lord knows he did. Like, and, you know, because I was battling, I stopped cold turkey that night. Like, I stopped drinking like hard liquor. After that, I tried, like, I would have an old Duels or I have a wine, because my vice was liquor.
Right.
Straight liquor, like no chaser. So it was that, and it was weed, and then now, you know, I was doing cocaine. So I should have gone. I don't tell anybody, you know, I don't say, oh yeah, try to do cold turkey at home. No, I probably should have gone to detox, but I didn't. And God began to do a work in me. And that's when I started going back to church. I was so new to Christ that somebody, you know, the scripture where it talk about if you knock, you shall receive.
Right.
So they used an analogy of like knocking, like if somebody come to your house knocking and they're in need, like what would you do? And I was like, I wouldn't do nothing. I said, depend on who come knocking at my house. I said, if it's my brother, I ain't answering the door. And they were like, oh my God. And I was like,
But see, that's a lesson how we minister to people.
Yeah.
You know, we can't, everybody doesn't understand the scripture. You have to be, just like Jesus did the parables. He knew that they weren't going to understand it, so we had to give it to them in the containment that they could swallow it.
Well, they did. They tried. They gave me the analogy of the door and stuff like that. And I was so, I was so into me in my thought process. I was like, nah, it depends on who's at the door, so I'm not going to open it. So that's how new I was to Christ. So it was a very, very difficult walk in the beginning, because I was also dealing with so many addictions.
Right.
So within that time frame, I ended up meeting my husband, and I was like, "You sure you want to do this? Because I'm a mess." But he was like, "I don't care what type of baggage you have. I don't care about any of that. I am here with you." And I thought he was saved, because he seemed like, wow, you're like from heaven talking to me. And he was, he told me that, I said, I don't understand it. I just don't understand the Bible. And he said, pray to the Holy Spirit and he will teach you. And I did. And then I started getting revelation, and I started praying actually to the Holy Spirit, because, you know, we have Jesus and we have God, but sometimes we forget to pray to the Holy Spirit. And when we forget to pray to the Holy Spirit, we lose a lot, I believe, of the learning that we're supposed to get, because he's the great teacher and the great comforter. And so when he told me that, I'm like, okay, I'll try it. And so I did. I thought he was saved. Come to find out, he wasn't saved. He ain't barely been to church or anything, but God gave him that revelation.
Because somebody apparently taught it to him.
And even after we got married, we've had challenges in our marriage, but it's been 17 years now, and we're still together. But yeah, those are some of the highlights and really dark periods in my life that I've had.
So you've been raped a total of
4 times.
4 times.
4 times and 1 attempt.
1 attempt. How do you find yourself getting in? You know, most people shut down completely, and you monopolize the drugs and all of that to get past that. But I think I probably wouldn't have wanted to be touched ever again. Well,
as a kid, also, how God saved my mind, how acting came in, I think this is important to say. I used to always perform in front of my family. Like, I would go dress up at like different family members and put on purses and have my hair done like people. And God, I always say, saved me through acting and through the water. We lived on the water, and I used to go to the water all the time. I used to crab, I used to fish, and he saved me through the earth. That's why I'm so connected to his creation. He helped keep me sane in that and through the acting. And then when I was younger, I was very, very shy. When I was going through the actual molestation, I was very shy. Now I performed before my family and stuff, but when it came to people talk, like I was so shy, I would hide behind my dad's leg and try to hold it as he walked. Like I was that shy. I was very shy to the point when I was in elementary school, I would sit on the bus and I wouldn't say a word, so much that the bus driver one time took me back to the school because she didn't realize I was on the bus. I was that quiet. But as far as the touching part, I realized as I became a sober adult that I don't like to be touched. But when I was not sober, I didn't care who touched me.
Who touched you?
So I had to be drunk or on drugs to really
Be touched.
And have
And
sex.
understand. So I guess what my question is, how do you know, we got people out there that have been raped, that have been molested, and you know, and what I used to tell people is you can't show love and give love when you don't know how to.
Right.
So when someone has not really been healed, because people will get into relationships, will get into marriages and all of that, knowing that you're not healed.
Right.
From being, molested or from being raped. How did you get to that point where, and I know you said the Holy Spirit, but before you got to that point, something got you to the point where I'm ready for a real relationship, because that doesn't happen easily.
I have always wanted somebody to love me. So, like I told you, I went through phases. I went through one phase, I want somebody to love me. Next phase was, I don't care about any of y'all. So, when that last situation happened, I had so much baggage, and all I wanted was just somebody to love me. I had gotten older, and when I went through that last relationship, like I said, that was my rock bottom. So, when I hit that rock bottom, that's when I was like, okay, there's got to be more to life than this. Or have you just designed me that I'm just to be used and abused? It's one of the two, but I'm going to give you a try.
Right.
So with that came the marriage. Now my marriage is where all the trials and tribulations came, far as me confronting those issues.
Right.
And when I confronted them, I had to confront them. I literally had to expose myself to things that I did not like. Now, do I still battle with that today? Yes. I will never tell anyone it's going to happen overnight.
Right.
I still battle to this day. There's times that my husband can come by and just touch me, and I'm like, oh, don't do that. And he's like, what? And I'm like, just don't do that. And now he's growing a beard, and I'm like, you gotta cut it. Because with love,
right,
it's very hard for me. I can love you, but once you mess up, it's hard for me to trust you again. And that's, I think, with a lot of people. But when you've already been so damaged, you have a tendency, depending on what the hurt is, you have a tendency to revert back.
Right.
And then it's like,
we're back. Sorry. We'll read all the comments.
Yeah, I can't.
Because we kind of, and she was talking about how just the triggers and the different things that it's always going to be in the back of your head. It's always going to be in your mind. And I think the last thing you said before our connection was that cutting people loose and how, you think about something if somebody hurts you.
Yeah. For most of us who've been hurt in those areas, it's very difficult when you go through different pain with other people. Like she's one of my good friends. And like if she was to hurt me, it would be like I would be probably like done with her, like literally,
and vice versa. Because we both have gone through similar situations.
So it would be one of those things that I wouldn't hate her, but it would be very, very difficult to get. Even if she came back and said I'm sorry and everything, I'm just being honest because a lot of Christians won't tell you all this. It would just take me a minute to get, and I'm not going to say that we would ever get back to that place, because I do believe that we can forgive, but we don't have to necessarily be connected like we once were.
Right.
Depending on the situation, because some people, they can have reconciliation and it's just like nothing ever happened. Then you got some people, depending on what the hurt was and everything, they kind of base it, because we have tendency to put conditions on stuff, and we shouldn't all the time. But
yeah, I'm understanding that because I'm exactly like that. I don't tell people I'm Peter to the core.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. You cut me or hurt me, it's a wrap. It ain't even coming back from it. You mean I'll be cordial with you and I'll be respectful to you.
Yeah, and see, I'm more of, I always try to have compassion towards people because I know how bad it hurts and be alone. So sometimes I even put myself back in stupid situations because it's like, Dad, they hurting. But I still have my guard up. But at the same time, like the average person probably wouldn't even do that. So that's something also that I battle with, like that balance.
Right.
Like either I'm done with you, or I'm extremely like, oh, people make mistakes, and it's sort of like I probably need to be done with you on certain levels.
Right.
But so I always try to find that balance in that. To forgive always, but
right, absolutely.
to just
You
have
can
balance
forgive.
within
It's
it.
just like, okay, I forgive you, but
Yeah. I think one time, like since we're talking about forgiveness, one of the times that really, I was delivering my initial sermon, and during my initial sermon, I realized that one of the guys with me was there.
wow.
And,
New message from Tracy Allen.
is that you?
Yep, keep going.
But one of the guys who raped me went to my initial sermon, and after the sermon, part of it was about forgiveness.
Right.
And afterwards, he said, thank you. That's all he said to me was thank you. But you talking about facing a Goliath, that was something like, I know the anointing was upon me because it could have totally distracted me in that moment.
Did you see him prior to you preaching? Or
yeah, I did.
So you saw him when he came in?
Yeah, because of who he was. So, and because nobody knew what he had done, he was very close to my seat. Yeah.
Ooh. Okay. Say no more.
So it was rough, but I have to say that it was 100% God.
Right.
I cannot, and it's very hard because you hear certain testimonies like, well, I went and got therapy. Now, I'm not knocking therapy, but I have to say there was a gentleman by the name of, I'm going to call his name out because Lord knows, if it had not been for God placing him in my life, I probably would not be talking. I probably wouldn't be a minister right now. His name was Elder Gatewood, Victor Gatewood from Abundant Life back home. This man, when I say somebody walking with you, talking to you, there was times where I didn't understand ministry because I'm coming from I don't understand. There was a lot I did not understand about just keeping my mouth shut, because I went from this kid who never said nothing to this adult who was very vocal.
Right.
And then God had me during the training period of being a minister, he had me to keep my mouth shut basically until it was time for me to get my initial sermon. I mean, I was vocal, but I wasn't that vocal.
Right.
And this man, there was plenty of times I would call him, plenty of times. One time I was at church and I was wigging out in my mind, and he took me out to the side. He's like, Richard, I need to talk to her for a second. Because I was like, I'm done. I was like, I don't want to be a minister no more. And he was like, no, you're called, and you didn't go through all of this hell for no reason. And he just really, really, I think some of us have, pivotal points in our life where we have people that really impart into us. Because if it had not been for God using him, I can promise you I wouldn't be a minister right now. And it was just like God continued to put people in my place. And I thank God for the wisdom to know I'm a Proverbs person because I'm a chaser of wisdom. Like I'm definitely, I chase it. So because of that, I believe I had the gift, but it has been increased. So I always know to get counsel.
Right.
I'm particular about my counsel though, very particular. But I do get counsel, and if I was very naive to that, I wouldn't have had an Elder Gatewood or a Donna or, different people that's been in my life. Like even my family, my mom is very prophetic, and I use wisdom. I listen to her. I mean, we bump heads sometimes, but I listen to her. It's probably because we're so much alike.
Right, yeah, so much alike.
But my sister, she's been an encouraging person in my life. But if it had not been for that, and then it was just, after I became a minister and everything, I thought life was going to be great. And nobody kind of
told you that's when all hell really broke loose. It really broke loose.
My marriage started falling apart. It was like everything in 1 year. My marriage falling apart. It was falling apart, and I didn't know it was falling apart. Then I did know it was falling apart. But then on top of that, my brother died. then on top of that, as my brother died around that time, the doctors said that they thought I had cancer. So then they didn't understand why I didn't have cancer, but they did all that they had to do to try to get all the abnormal cells out. And I had the testing. I had to go through testing for like 3 years straight. Like I had to be tested very closely to make sure that those cells weren't coming back quickly. And because it was that bad. They had never seen a case like mine that was not cancer. So I went through that and my brother dying
at the same time. My
husband being overseas, 2 wars, and then our marriage was falling apart and trying to handle home with the 2 kids. It's been a rough walk, but I have to say when everything started falling apart, the second part of my life after I gave my life to Christ truly is when I also realized it's better to have Christ and walk through hell than to not have him and walk through hell.
Hey, that's a powerful word in itself.
Yeah.
Because we don't think that, so many people think that, I can't wait to go into ministry. I can't wait. If God, I would not do it now, but I used to say that if God gave me a chance without me ever being penalized for walking away, I would walk away.
Wow.
Now I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Because I understand it. I understand the relationship, but because my walk is about with my relationship with Him. Prior to that, it was just everything I was being told to do this, do this, do this. Nobody was really. I wasn't really at first when I first walked into ministry. I wasn't really taught exactly what to do, and then it's like within a year of me being in ministry, the floodgates opened up.
Yeah.
And, and then when you were talking about how you face your accuser, I remember the hardest thing I had to do was I never told anyone in my family that I had been molested. And it was, how do I get past this now? Yeah. I don't like being touched. I don't like being, I have intimacy issues to this day. And so and it was like, how do I get past forgiving? I mean, I forgive them because that's what I'm supposed to do. But how am I going to ever forget this if I don't? So I ended up going to, I was talking to one of my friends and he was telling me, I told him all about what was going on because I never shared it with him in like over 15 years of us somewhat dating. And so he was like, and I told him, I was like, they died, what am I supposed to do? I didn't get a chance to say anything to them before they died because I felt like I should have. And he was like, I think you need to go to the funeral. I'm like, man, you crazy. I'm not going to this man's funeral. You know what he did to me? And he was like, you have to, because you're going to have to face it. Yeah. You're going to have to say goodbye. And I'm like,
that right there speaks a lot, because when I was back home at Abundant Life, during that time, my brother died. So I went and told the individual who molested me that my brother had died. And he looked at me, because it's a whole dynamic to that. It's not because I just wanted to go over there. It's a long story. You got to remember, a lot of people didn't know who it was. Right. So I pretended all those years
that it wasn't true.
Nobody hurt me. Right. Or if they hurt me, they had no name. Right. So I went over there and I told them, like, my brother died, blah, blah. And he looked at me and he was like, who are you? And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean, who am I? Like, out of all the people, you should always remember who I am. And I was so angry in that moment, like, because I felt, you should know me. What you did to me. You stripped me of everything. How can you say you don't know who I am? And so the elder that you remember I told you I confided in, and I was telling him, I was like, man, I was pissed off. Like, that made me mad. And he was like, but you got to think about it. You've changed. Right. God's glory. He just explained it on a different level that I didn't think of. But before he died, he was in the hospital. The man who molested me, he was in the hospital. He was very ill. And while he was in the hospital ill, I was taking classes under Elder Gatewood. And I remember telling Elder Gatewood, like, I feel sick. you have to remember, whenever you've encountered anyone who's molested you, raped you, anybody you've had sex with, this may be deep and it's a whole nother discussion, a whole nother class that everybody should go through. You develop ungodly soul ties.
Right.
So because of those ungodly soul ties, you may feel things from someone getting sick, or because you have that connection to someone.
Right.
And that's why it's important to make sure that you try to pray off any type of ungodly soul tie that you may have, even with the previous relationship. That's why you have a lot of people end up, like, I'll give an example, like, you never watched porn before, but then you're dating this guy and that's all he does, and all of a sudden you start watching porn all the time. Like, the spirits transfer.
Right.
So it's very, very deep, and I didn't understand how deep it was until it was like God put me in those Christian counseling classes to get that degree, in order to, which I haven't done all, but I was taking classes under, but it was, he put me there, I believe, also to minister to me,
right,
as I was going through those situations in my life. So it's very difficult far as relationship, even now. Like, I wouldn't say I'm the greatest person to be in a relationship with.
Right.
At all. Like, I have to really, I have to pray. Like, in my mouth.
And that's probably why I'm alone.
Yeah, my mouth sometimes is terrible, and it's not even.
It was today to me. She talked to me terrible today. Good thing I love her and I don't pay any attention to her, but
she doesn't. but those and then you develop you can end up developing also like a slave mentality where you are still in
submissive
bondage. So you get in these relationships that you're supposed to be out of, like the relationship that I had with that one guy. I should have been out of that relationship, but because I felt indebted, or because I felt like, no, I gotta love him. So it becomes very dysfunctional, because your whole perception of relationships are dysfunctional. You got to remember, at the age of, he molested me from 5 to 11, the very first time I even had an intimate kiss was with my molester. He was like probably 50 or 60, I don't know how old he was, and I was a little girl. I was maybe 9. Like, that's how sick that was. And I really believe he was grooming me till I got a certain age where he probably would have made me have sex with him. He threatened to shoot me with a gun, and I had seen him shoot animals. Like, so all that played in my head. So when you get in a relationship, even if it's dysfunctional, because usually you're the dysfunctional one in the relationship, it could be a great relationship, but if it doesn't cause some type of chaos or disturbance, you're going to try to make the disturbance.
Right.
Or if they're too close, you're going to try to just do something to make them get away from you. But you, at the same time, you want them to love you. And it's probably very sick.
Right. It's become
but
a sickness, because that's what you've conditioned yourself that you deserve, almost. Yeah. Because that's what you've been, everything that you've been through. You're like, well, okay, whatever. It happened. Nobody protected me then, so what's going to protect me now? So just deal with it.
And even with the rapes, the reason why I never really said anything was because a lot of times I knew the people, and this is how sick it was. I was so worried about their protection that I wouldn't even tell them.
That's what I was going to say. Why didn't you report?
I didn't tell them because I knew it would cause...
Because basically you knew your life too, and you knew what you were doing. Yeah,
and my family. Like, I didn't want to bring shame. So I always put other people before me, like, in everything.
Right.
So even in being raped, it had gotten to the point, about the 3rd rape, I would just lay there. Because I figure if I fight you, you're going to try to come at me harder.
Right.
So let me just lay here and get it over with.
So what, and if anybody has any questions or, anything that you want to ask, please make sure that you ask them. I'm far enough away now that I can see most of it. I can't see anything close up. But if you have questions regarding anything that we're talking about, please ask your question, because I believe that, people are going through situations. And, even like when we were growing up, as far as molestation, probably half the county had been molested. All of our families had, people had, but because it's don't tell, you're not supposed to tell it. You're not supposed to let anybody know what what goes on in this house stays in this house. So half of our families never know what we've experienced and what we've gone through. And we carry that shame with us
Yeah.
throughout all of our lives. You know, it was my fault. You know, maybe I dressed this way,
Right.
or maybe I did this, maybe I did that. And then, when in actuality, when you start changing who you are and changing whose you are,
Right.
then you start. Wait a minute, dog. For real? No, that wasn't my fault.
Right.
That
Right.
was you. That was your sickness.
Or either sometimes you begin to not, you feel like, okay, well, I can't share, or if I do share, because like then I start running into the problem. Some people I did share it with, and then they didn't believe me.
Right.
So I was like, all right. And then by the time I was because before, as far as the rapes, before I got raped, I was being promiscuous. In between the time of having been molested to before I got raped, I was being very promiscuous. So I'm like, if I go in there telling people such and such raped me, they ain't gonna believe me, because they're gonna be like, oh, she a hoe anyway. So that's why I kept my mouth, right, I kept my mouth shut. Then I didn't want to bring all that to my family. And then on top of it, I just learned to just endure it. So when I remember one of the times I got raped, I just laid there, and when I laid there, it was like an out-of-body experience. I just laid there, closed my eyes, and imagined being on the water. So that was that's when I knew it was like beyond. And that's when I started doing coke even more, because I knew that at that point I was just like really, really, my mind was gone.
So if she cry, I know I'm gonna
I'm
cry. 'Cause
sorry.
my eyes all watered out. It's like she gonna cry, and I've been holding this. Yeah, but you know, we never know. We see people and we smile, and you know, and I tell people, when you're, you know, my family tells me, and my best friend, my sister, everybody, and you, I talk to anybody.
Yeah, you do.
I don't care who, I don't care who you are. If you in line with me, I'm gonna turn around and say something.
Right.
I'm getting your conversation, you know, because and you walking around. Because I think even one girl was like, just looking mean, and I'm like, smile, honey, you know, because you don't know what somebody's going through.
Right.
So many people wear, as you said earlier, and we know it's true, we wear masks so much. You don't know the pain, the hurt that somebody's going through or that's been through, and they don't know how to get out of it. I don't know how to get out of domestic violence. I don't know how to, you know, report that my child is being raped, because I know families that mothers know that their children have been molested or have been raped, but because if I say something as a mother, you know, he's gonna leave me. Well, let him go, because your child comes first.
Right.
That child can't help, you know, we can't, as a child, we can't protect ourselves. That's why we have parents, and yes, it makes me mad, because the mentality of women who feel like I can't do any better. But yet you know that your child is being brutalized day in and day out by some man or some uncle that comes to the house, or some woman.
Yeah.
Yes, because it has happened before, where women have turned out young girls.
Yep.
And it's absolutely disgusting. But how do we get to that point that you got to get past it? We're not even past it. I don't want to say that. What would we say? What do we say when we see people who are hurting? We know that have been through it, that are going through it, because we both see it. We both, God has given us both discernment. What do you say to a person who's hurting so bad, and you can see that they've been molested, or you can see that they're going through abuse? How do you help that person?
The only thing, I made a promise to God when I became a Christian. I said, Lord, obviously you allowed me to go through this for a reason.
Right.
And I made a vow. My ultimate vow was, as long as I have breath in my body, I want you to use me to help anyone. I don't want to dwell in my past, but I want to reflect often enough that I will remain humble and be able to help other people. So I found what's best for me, even in the population that I work with, even with ministry. If someone has confided in me, I let them talk. Because a lot of times we don't take time to listen to people.
Amen.
And a lot of people just want you, and I need to go back to about children too, remind me.
Okay.
But yeah, remind me. But we have to let people talk, because you got to remember, sometimes people have been walking around with this secret for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. One time I went to it was some type of resort or something, and it was a program for women. Mm-hmm. They had a retreat. I'm sorry, not a resort, but it was a resort. But they had this retreat, and this woman said, she wanted me to come and speak about how to stay a virgin until marriage. And I said, you got the wrong one, because I can't talk about that, because that's not my story. But I can talk about the repercussions.
Right.
So I talked to the young girls. They seemed to enjoy it. But every person that came up to me after that was a woman who was at the time I was in my 20s. They were like in their 40s and their 50s. And they were like, I've been molested. I've been raped. And I just let them talk. And as they talk, when God led me to, I interject bits of my testimony, because the one thing that you have to remember, if you have a story like that, you need to be transparent enough to allow God to use your mouth to be able to help someone. Because a lot of times women don't talk because they feel like they're the only one out there that's been through that. Right. So when we're able to be transparent, and some of y'all may be battling with transparency, and that's fine. But when you can get to the point where you can speak, that's when you're really going to be effective to help somebody else.
Yes.
And it's not saying you have all the answers. Mm-hmm. I don't have all the answers. Like, some of the things I think of, like, how did I get through that? Like, I don't necessarily, all I can say is God.
Right.
Because of the simple fact, that's who I spent the most time with, and that's who I can attribute it to. Mm-hmm. I can't say it was in my own strength, because honest to God, if it was in my own strength, I'd probably still be on drugs and drinking. Oh, I know I would.
Right.
Because not only was it an addiction, I liked it. I'm just going to be honest. I liked it.
I liked it a lot.
I loved it.
It made me numb.
It made me escape.
I didn't have to feel anything. I didn't have to think about anything. I just didn't care. You know, when you don't have, when you can get into a world where you have no cares.
Yeah.
Alcohol and weed and coke.
Yeah. So when you're dealing with individuals who are hurting, I think the biggest thing is you have to listen. Mm-hmm. Because you have to move at the pace that they want to move at. You can't throw too much at them, because they're going to back up. I had people to try to come at me when I was during the heaviest times of my partying and hanging out and doing a whole bunch of stuff and riding around and helping people transport stuff that I ain't had no business helping. But during that period, I had a couple of people who knew what I was doing. Like, you know, people talk in a small town, in a town period. And they would come to me and be like, you need to go to church and you need to do that. And then it was like, oh, you got a tattoo? Oh, you still drink? I'm like, I don't want your Jesus then. Like, if he's going to be like that, I don't want him.
Right.
And I remember telling one woman that. I was like, I don't want your Jesus. I don't want your church. Because the way you came at me was totally wrong. So because of that, and this was someone that I tried to kind of tell a little bit to, and she couldn't handle it. Everybody can't handle your story.
That is the truth. They can't handle it because they don't want to handle it.
They don't want to.
And then we have to, as Christians, we can't get off that high horse.
Yeah.
And remember that you were human and you're still human.
Right.
Before God called you or before God moved you out of your mess, whatever, we all have been in some mess. We all got some secrets. We all got some stuff in our closet that we dare not tell anybody. But you can't put somebody else down or make somebody feel, belittle them, make them feel, that if you don't do this and you don't do that, because you're going to lose everybody.
I think you have to listen. You have to watch your tone and your voice.
You cannot be judgmental.
You cannot be judgmental.
Cannot.
Even if it's something off the wall somebody's bringing you, you cannot show that on your face because they will sense it. You got to remember they're very sensitive.
Very.
So you got to make sure your facial expression, your body language, all of that plays a part when someone comes to you. And to be able to listen to them. And then if you have a story, or even if you don't have a story, just make sure you listen to them. And then if you do have a story, try to impart how you got out, or whatever God gives you to say to them.
Right.
Because it may be that, it may just be that, hey, look,
if you need somebody to talk to, I can connect you. If you don't have anything that you can offer them.
I'm not going to say that it's always good to say you understand.
Because you don't.
Because everybody's story is different.
Right.
So my battle, Donna's been through some stuff when she told her testimony, Reverend Donna. I'm sorry.
I'm Donna.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And the titles
but
don't impress.
we were, I was shocked because I didn't know. Like, I didn't know about the homelessness, and I was like, what? You know, like, I was totally shocked. But at the same time, that I can't go to her and say, even if I had been homeless at one point, I can't go to her and say, oh, I understand. You can't. Everybody's story is very, very unique.
And before somebody, my homelessness was because of my pride.
Right. So I think that the biggest thing is you have to listen to them. And when they're ready for more help, then proceed to help them more. Like if you have connections with mental health, because no one who has been molested, raped, sexually abused can honestly tell me in their face that they don't suffer or have suffered from some form of mental illness, which I continue to this day still battle with depression.
Absolutely.
I battle with it. Like, I used to hide, like, I don't want anybody to know, especially in the African American community. It's a big taboo still in the church. It's sometimes a taboo. But I had to be real.
Major in the ministry.
Yeah, very major. Especially if you're a minister. Like, what?
God,
You telling people you got
depression?
Yeah, girl, they think you crazy and you full of
y'all
demons.
better be glad that I'm taking that pill.
But, yeah, so, I mean, I battle. You know, I have my way of coping, and I have my way of realizing the triggers. Sometimes they present. I have new ones.
Right.
You know, because people who've gone through this do suffer a lot of times from PTSD. Mm-hmm. PTSD is not just for military. PTSD. My husband have it, and I got it. He got his from military. I got mine from being molested. Like, I do know that I have PTSD, and I know that depression can definitely get the best of me at times. But I usually can sense when it's coming.
Right. And most of the time we can tell when, okay, you know, I need to escape away from people because that's going to cause it to be exasperated. It's going to make it worse because people are going to want to touch you. They're going to want it. What's wrong? What's wrong? And the more you ask somebody what's wrong, that just makes it worse. Yeah. You know, just let them, as she said, you know, Mr. Minor said, when they're ready to tell you, they're going to tell you. Yeah. And, you know, go back to you, when we were talking about how people use drugs and they do whatever for coping. And as most of you know, I work with the prostitutes and I work with, you know, and the biggest thing I always tell people, nobody that I know of in this world wakes up and says, no, I want to be a prostitute, or I want to be an addict, or I want to live out on the street. There is always a root cause to every situation. And when you take time to really listen to someone, you know, one time we were out there, my best friend was with me out on the street, and she said, you know, we were just looking, and she said, I wonder, you know, what their story is. Mm-hmm. Ask them. Yeah. You know, hey, you know, what made you get to this point? Yeah. And they'll tell you. They will. You know, it's because I was, you know, abused. Mentally, physically, and sexually. That's the probably 90% of the women who are out. I would say no, not 90, maybe 80% of the women who are out on the street are prostituting or have done some type of sexual endeavor. It has been as a result of abuse. It has been a result of, you know, the physical, the mental, and the sexual abuse. And when you get to that point, something you just don't know how to get out of it. Right. If you don't have somebody to talk to, if you don't have that avenue, if you don't have that spiritual background or somebody that's pouring into you and giving you something. Christina had that, right. You know, had somebody that was at least giving it to you, even in the wrong. And then you have other people, you know, we as Christians, instead of us, and I'm not down in Christians, you know, I'm just saying people, you know, but we're talking about, because when we go out on these streets or when we go into, you know, the testimony periods in churches or wherever, you know, when somebody's talking, soon as they say, just like, just use the video. The recent video of the young lady that came all over social media that people saw, that where the lady was in church New Year's Eve and she went to give her testimony and she was saying she got explicit as to what it was she was doing with the men. Yes, she was very graphic. She was very descriptive as to what she was doing. I just realized I waved at some of the young man by. She was very descriptive, but instead of them coaching her or helping her, They just shut her down and just left her standing there.
Yeah.
Now, what if that woman walked out of that church that night and killed herself? Because she was clearly inebriated. She was looking for something. She was looking for hope. And they took that hope away from her. Can you imagine the number of people that have been through some type of situation, some type of circumstance, whether it's rape, whether it's molestation, whether it's, or a kid who's going through bullying, that if we decide that we're going to rip the mic away from them and not help them, how many people are out there stranded? Don't want to come into the church ever again. Don't want to have any type of relationship. Don't want to be near anybody that thinks that they have a relationship with Christ. How many people are we hurting because we don't want to listen?
Right. You're hurting a lot of people.
That ticked me off.
Yeah, but I mean,
and it ticked me off mainly because of what I do.
I love the church, but I think a lot of us have had church hurts, what we call church hurts. I've had some, but I noticed sometimes it was pertaining to me, sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes it was because of how I seen people treat other people. And that made me angry and made me think God never created Christianity to be that complicated at all. And the legalism in church, all these rules that are not God made. I do believe that certain things have to be done to keep order.
Right.
But I do believe that a lot of times, like with that situation that I seen the video of, how many people are you also, we talk about thou shalt not kill, but you can kill somebody's spirit.
Exactly.
And you killing someone's spirit can also, in turn, if they're suicidal, cause them to kill themselves physically. So I think we have to be very, very careful and very sensitive to the Spirit of God. And just as a human being with some love and compassion, just love people. Because a lot of times what people want is really genuine love. That's it.
Right.
Like, that was my biggest quest forever. Now, half of us, though, because we've been hurt so much in life, we have a hard time reciprocating it once it gets
because we don't really know what it is.
We don't really know. That's when you have to really realize to be honest with yourself and realize that you don't know. I'll never forget in South Carolina, and I'm going to call their names, Pastor Chad Nobles and Pastor Ann. I was so just not knowing how to be a wife at all, because I came with a ton of baggage, and this was in the process of me confronting a lot of baggage. And I'll never forget Pastor Ann contacted me. She's like, have you ever read the book called The Praying Wife? And I was like, no. She was like, I think you need to read it. So she gave me material to read, and Pastor Chad was very connected. My husband was very close. He felt very close to Pastor Chad. And I don't know if they know it or not, but they really were our first church home as learning Christianity and learning God and allowing Him to be in our life. But had they turned away from us, that would have been it. Because I was still down with the death of my father. That was 2 years after the fact. So I had a lot of hurt. And then I had a lot of shame because of what I had gone through. And I wasn't at the place of really telling my full testimony.
Right.
So I had all this baggage, but they were patient. They were very patient, and they really loved us where we were. As messed up as our relationship was, at that point, but they loved us individually.
Right.
And I think that can be a big pivotal point in the church if we begin to really, really genuinely love people. Like I said, I told God, I made a promise. As long as I got breath in my body and you can use me, use me. I'll tell my testimony. People get sick of hearing it. I don't care. I'm going to tell it. And I had a woman at the prison, an inmate, come to me and say, don't ever stop telling your story. She said, because you don't know how much you've impacted us. With telling, she said, I know you may get tired of hearing yourself say it. She said, but keep on doing it. And I made a vow.
Because every time you say it, it heals you more and more.
It gives you healing. Exactly. And that was one thing when you were talking about healing, like before you were asking questions, how did I deal? That was one thing for me. When I got to the point where I could start sharing it, I had one person tell me one time, you shouldn't say all that. And I say, just because you haven't been healed and delivered or working at deliverance. Okay.
So we're going to be wrapping up soon.
But yeah, so I think that you have to, when you get to that point, you have to really make sure that you share your story whenever you can, whenever God gives you the opportunity. It does not have to be on a big platform. It does not have to be on social media, but God will bring people across your path to share your story, and you need to do that when you feel led to do it. I don't ever tell anyone just jump out there and start doing it, because sometimes you might tell too much and not sensitive to who you're talking to. You got to be sensitive to that.
Right, exactly, because people can ultimately take what you are going, what you've been through, and use that against you, because they know that you can, if you don't seem like you're comfortable or you're confident in your deliverance, they will ultimately take that and start using that and pulling you back into that same direction that you felt like you were done with. So you do have to be very wise in who you say it to and how you say it to it. And just, whether you are in the church, whether you're spiritual, whether you are, religious fanatic or whatever it is, there is something that tells you within common sense, should I be saying this to this person?
Yeah, I just want to mention this because we're going to wrap up, because we've held y'all long enough.
She going to run my show.
And the church said amen.
I'm a collaborator for collection.
I just wanted to make for sure I touch on children.
Yes.
I have driven my children absolutely insane. Let me tell you, okay, so not only do I definitely have OCD. So because you gain these things sometimes because of the abuse that you've gone through. And with my children, like there was times that it was like their room had to be a certain way, because it was a control thing. Like, you've had someone to control you by abuse. They're controlling you. So then you find ways to say, but nobody's going to control me this way. Right. Like, I'm going to keep my house this way, because I had to have that control. But also, not just about that part. The other thing is, my children, I'm so overprotective, but it comes from being abused. Right. Because I never wanted to ever hear my child say such and such touched me. Like, I don't even know how I would handle that to this day. And I pray to God I don't have to hear it. But I don't know, because that would be a trigger. So I always you can't go with this person. I don't know who that person is. To the utmost. But not only about the making sure that they're okay, I had to learn to trust God for my children, because ultimately they're His. Right. So I had to learn to trust God, because a lot of this control and a lot of when you've been abused, you have a tendency not to trust people. You're not as vulnerable. Like, doing this video is like, I got to do a video. Like, it was just. But I said this year, I'm going to be vulnerable. Right. And I've realized that it's because.
New message from Letitia Pegram.
I have to make sure that I trust God in everything that I do. Even when my husband and I were going through, I realized in order for it to be restored, God told me, because I said, God, this hurts so bad when we were going through our marriage, because I felt like I was being worse than molested, worse than raped. I'm like, this hurts to my core. And he said, but this is how it feels when you sin against me. And when God began to minister to me about that, I was like, whoa, it took me out of the equation, And then I said, well, how am I supposed to try to love again? How am I supposed to get my life back, with him, since I'm not going anywhere? And God was like, you have to trust me. Right. And then I realized it's not that I just have to trust God for my relationship. I have to trust God in everything that I do. So even with my children, who I'm very territorial over, I had to say, okay, God, I'm going to let them go over here. I trust you. Right. Because that's your child. Right. And
you have to believe in what you instilled in them.
Yeah, trust them that they'll do the right thing. Right. Give them an opportunity. So I realized that I definitely had to trust. And the other sad part is my daughter one time told me, she said, Mom, she said, it used to hurt me. And I said, what did I do? She said, when you would get depressed and stay in a room for 3 days, it would hurt me. And I said, what do you mean? She said, you were there physically, but you weren't here mentally. She said, because we would see you laying in there. You kept the room dark. Dad told us not to mess with you. and you would just be in your room. And I was like, but I wasn't bothering you.
Right.
And that's how many of us think. Like, I'm cutting my arm, but I'm not bothering you.
Right.
I'm trying to commit suicide, but I'm not bothering you. Not realizing the repercussion is, if I do succeed, I am bothering you.
them.
If I don't succeed and have to go to the hospital, I'm bothering you.
Right.
You know, I'm putting you in a compromising situation.
Right.
Something that you wouldn't even have to deal with if I could just seek God and get this under control, or even get professional help.
Absolutely.
So just be sensitive to all of that.
Right. So we have, we've covered a lot.
Sorry.
No. Sometimes, you know, we get so caught up on time, we don't get what we need to get out. And we wanted to make sure, because this topic was very sensitive, it was because so many people, and I saw a couple Me Too's come up there, where people have experienced this and are going through this and have not fully healed from being either molested or being raped or being abused. So many people are dealing with this, and we don't want to live in a Me Too syndrome, but we are.
Right.
But we want to get past the Me Too. And I saw a comment that said, every smiling face, you don't know what, you know, you really don't know what's going on behind that smiling face. And we don't want to continue to live in a world where we have to put on fake faces.
Right.
We want to be able to talk about it in a comfortable and safe environment. We want to be able to know that when we sit down and we're sharing with you, if I'm sharing with Christina, and you know, because I shared with her and I knew her, but you know, it was like, but I felt led to share it. You don't know when that sharing is going to help somebody else. You don't know when that sharing is going to help you, and we want you to know that through this recording on tonight that you have avenues, whether it's myself, whether it's Minister Minor, or, you know, we got a gambit of people that we can connect you with, that if you need help, we can get you the necessary help. We can be the listening ear, not just the hearing ear, because too many people hear stuff, but they don't listen. And there is a big difference between hearing and listening. We want people who are willing to listen without judgment.
Yeah.
And listen with love, knowing that, you know, that could have been me, that was me, it could be my child.
Right.
We want to do whatever we can to prevent that from ever being somebody else having to go through that. I see it every day. And I think that's why I hate doing what I do now, you know, whether through the, you know, the criminal law, because I see so much.
Right.
With mental health, you see and hear so much, and we want to do whatever we can to just be there. I see Jeanette on here. Jeanette is she works with Henrico County Public Schools, and you know, she works with troubled youth. She has an awesome ministry that, you know, she's a listener. She is a prayer. You know, she will do whatever she can to help you get through that point. I saw Tamika on here. Tamika Leslie, she is a social worker. Whatever, there's so many different people that are on this feed that have specialties, that are praying. I saw Evangelist Smith on here. You got multiple people that are on this feed that if you need help, we're asking you, don't wait till tomorrow, because tomorrow may not be promised. If you know someone that needs some help, let us know. We can get together. I love coffee. We can sit and talk coffee all night long.
I do. Starbucks is like my second home.
IHOP is mine.
It's so bad that the people in Starbucks like, I got a problem. Can I sit down and talk to you? So
so she got Starbucks. I got IHOP and tropical smoothie. Now the tropical smoothie, the guy know me by, you know, I walk in the door, they start my order because they know what I'm gonna get. But then I'm noticing the more I come in there now, he's telling me about his mom. He's telling me about his, you know, things that he's going through. We don't know what somebody needs. We just want to be here for you. So if you have any questions, you have any concerns, or you just need to talk privately, confidentially, you got us. We're here for you. You know, Christina Minor Ministries. Remember the face talent.
It's RTF.
RTF.
They're not gonna find it with remember.
Yeah. Okay.
RTF
talent.
Yeah.
What else?
That's it. That's on.
Okay. So Christina Minor Ministries or RTF.
RTF talent. Yep.
RTF Talent. So look her up for those. I'm under either Donna Banks Tucker, this feed. You can check me out on City of Jericho. You can send me private messages there. Any other, I'll put Minister Miner's email address on here if you want to reach her through email. I'm not going to give you her phone number. If she wants you to have it, she will give it to you. So whatever you need, we're here. I do want to ask that you will lift up in prayer. Just pray. I'm not going to call her name because the family is going through something. One of my friends, I go to 7-Eleven that much that I know everybody.
Yeah, you do.
But the young lady's mother is going through a major illness to the point where the doctors have asked them to have that talk. We can say that we understand when a parent goes to be with God, but everybody feels something different. Mm-hmm. What I've been through and how I dealt with my grief and how I dealt with hearing that my mother wasn't going to make it is not going to be how the next person receives it. Right. I didn't receive it well, but I'm able to minister to somebody else that can. I know that this young lady is going through a major time, and I'm just asking that you will just lift up the family of the young lady who works at 7-Eleven. That's all you need to know. Just pray that God's will, that God's mercy will be done over their lives, whatever God's way, whichever direction he takes it. Continue to pray for those who have lost loved ones, who have tragically, I'm going to call your names out because I love you and because I see and I know and I believe that you need unity in prayer. So I am calling out the name of, I went blank, of Sharon Peace. Please lift her up. Continue to lift her up. Who she just funeralized her daughter. Continue to lift up Reginald Hawks, and Atonda Chessman, who Reggie lost his son, which is Atonda's nephew, and then they lost their mom. So they had major and the elder family. It's been so many traumatic events that have happened in these last few years. Or these last few months, I'm sorry. And we're in need of prayer. We're in dire need of prayer. I mean, we've had murders already, multiple murders. It's just getting ridiculous. God is trying to open our eyes, open our ears, and just allow us to know that he is still on the throne. But we're going to have to yield to somebody, somewhere, someday. Yeah. And we just want you to just pray for each other. And we just want to thank you for joining us on today. We pray that God's blessings will be with you, that whatever you stand in need of, that God will pour into you abundantly, that God will speak to you in those still quiet moments, that God will grant you the desires of your heart, that God will hear you in the midnight hour when you're praying and you're crying and think no one knows what's going on, that God is still with you by your side. So we ask that you would just continue to lift each other up, continue to pray our strength, continue to pray for this ministry, City of Jericho, continue to pray for Christina Minor Ministries and RTF Talent. Continue to just pray for us all, because we all stand one step closer to just needing to hear from God. God bless you, and thank you for joining us on tonight.
Thank you.